Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, where you receive real and authentic updates about the Iraqi dinar. If you want to stay informed with moment-by-moment developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. In today's update, we're taking a careful and professional look at a topic that continues to generate confusion across the Iraqi dinar community, the concept of deleting the zeros from Iraq's currency. This phrase is often misunderstood and in many cases misrepresented. Some interpretations suggest that it refers to a sudden and dramatic increase in the exchange rate of the Iraqi dinar. However, based on credible economic understanding and monetary policy practices, that interpretation is inaccurate. What we are really discussing here is a standard monetary reform process known as redenomination. When officials refer to deleting the zeros, they are not talking about increasing the external value of the currency overnight. Instead, they are referring to removing large denomination banknotes from circulation and replacing them with lower denomination notes. This is a structural adjustment to the currency system itself, not a direct revaluation of its exchange rate. To put this into simple terms, imagine a 25,000 dinar note being replaced with a 25 dinar note while maintaining the same purchasing power within the domestic economy. Prices, salaries, and contracts would all be adjusted accordingly. The goal is not to make people richer overnight, but to simplify transactions, improve accounting efficiency, and modernize the financial system. This distinction is critical because misunderstanding it can lead to unrealistic expectations, particularly among those who closely follow Iraqi dinar developments. Monetary policy reforms like redenomination are technical processes, not sudden wealth-generating events. They are designed to improve the functionality of a country's currency, especially in economies that have previously experienced high inflation or rely heavily on large denomination notes. Now, according to the information we are analyzing today, the plan involves phasing out multiple zero notes entirely. This means gradually removing high-value denominations such as 10,000, 25,000, and potentially even higher notes from circulation, and replacing them with smaller denominations that are more practical for everyday use. This kind of transition typically happens over an extended period. Central banks not simply remove old currency overnight. Instead, they introduce new notes alongside existing ones, allowing both to circulate simultaneously for a transitional phase. During this time, citizens and businesses gradually exchange old notes for new ones through banks and financial institutions. Eventually, the old notes are fully withdrawn from the system. One of the key reasons for implementing such a reform is to enhance efficiency in daily transactions. When an economy relies heavily on large denomination notes, it can create logistical challenges. Carrying, counting, and storing large sums of money becomes cumbersome. By introducing smaller denominations, the financial system becomes more practical and user-friendly. Another important factor mentioned in the news is the role of inflation. Historically, redenomination is often associated with countries that have experienced high or hyperinflation. In those cases, removing zeros helps restore confidence in the currency and simplifies pricing structures. However, in Iraq's current situation, the claim is that inflation is relatively low. If that assessment is accurate, it changes the narratives significantly. A redenomination under conditions of low inflation suggests a proactive modernization effort rather than a reactive measure to economic instability. It indicates that policymakers may be aiming to streamline the currency system in anticipation of future economic growth and increased financial integration. The mention of sanctions potentially being lifted also adds an important layer to this discussion. Economic sanctions can restrict a country's access to international financial systems, limit trade, and put pressure on its currency. If sanctions are indeed reduced or removed, It could open the door for increased foreign investment, improved banking relations, and greater participation in global markets. However, it's important to approach this aspect with caution. The removal of sanctions does not automatically lead to immediate economic transformation. It creates opportunities, but those opportunities must be supported by strong governance, stable institutions, and sound economic policies. In other words, it's a positive development, but not a guaranteed turning point on its own. From a short-term perspective, if Iraq proceeds with removing large denomination notes and introducing smaller ones, we can expect a period of adjustment within the domestic economy. Businesses will need to update pricing systems, banks will need to manage currency exchanges, and the public will need to adapt to the new denominations. This transition phase can sometimes create temporary confusion, but with proper planning and communication, it is usually manageable. For Iraqi dinar followers, especially those outside Iraq, the short-term impact on the exchange rate is likely to be minimal. Redenomination does not inherently change the value of the currency in foreign exchange markets. The external value of the dinar is influenced by factors such as oil revenues, foreign reserves, trade balance, and overall economic stability, not simply the number of zeros printed on banknotes. Looking at the long-term implications, a successful currency reform could contribute to greater economic stability and efficiency. A modernized currency system can improve investor confidence, facilitate digital banking adoption, and support the development of a more diversified economy. These are all positive indicators, but they unfold gradually over time. It's also worth noting that currency reforms require a high level of public trust. If citizens believe in the stability and reliability of their currency, they are more likely to use it in formal financial systems rather than relying on foreign currencies or informal markets. Building that trust is a key objective of any central bank undertaking such reforms. At the same time, transparency and clear communication from authorities are essential. Misunderstandings about terms like deleting the zeros can lead to speculation and misinformation. This is why it's important to rely on verified sources and maintain a realistic perspective on what these policy changes actually mean. Another angle to consider is the broader economic context of Iraq. As an oil-dependent economy, Iraq's financial stability is closely tied to global oil prices. While currency reforms can improve internal efficiency, they do not eliminate external vulnerabilities. Diversifying the economy remains a long-term priority for sustainable growth. Additionally, the banking sector plays a crucial role in the success of any redenomination process. Strong financial institutions are needed to manage currency exchanges, ensure liquidity, and maintain public confidence. Continued reforms in the banking system, including modernization and regulatory improvements, will be important supporting factors. For international observers and investors, the key takeaway is to separate structural reforms from exchange rate expectations. Redenomination is a technical adjustment, not a signal of sudden currency appreciation. Long-term currency strength depends on economic fundamentals, not cosmetic changes to banknotes. This brings us back to the central message of today's update. The idea that deleting the zeros directly increases the value of the Iraqi dinar is misleading. What it actually represents is a shift in how the currency is structured and used within the domestic economy. Understanding this distinction helps set realistic expectations and supports more informed discussions. In conclusion, the reported plan to phase out large denomination notes and introduce smaller ones appears to be a standard monetary reform initiative aimed at improving efficiency and modernizing Iraq's currency system. The mention of low inflation and potential easing of sanctions provides additional context, suggesting a relatively stable environment for such changes. However, these developments should be viewed as part of a broader economic process, rather than a single transformative event. Short-term adjustments are likely, while long-term benefits depend on consistent policy implementation, economic diversification, and institutional strength. As always, staying informed with accurate and balanced information is essential, especially when navigating complex financial topics like currency reform. If you want to continue receiving responsible and factual updates on the Iraqi dinar and Iraq's economy, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. And a final reminder, this content is provided for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice.